Say good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9 on the FM dial. Those of you viewing GBN TV, welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Monday, the 10th day of June, 2024. Those of you via social media platforms, I'm going to say good morning and welcome. Let me say good morning to Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. Good morning to you, sir.
Yes,
good morning. Good Monday morning.
Pleasant, good Monday morning to you, GT. And let me take the opportunity to say good morning to, again, all our listeners, or followers, or well-wishers, or contributors.
Yes.
Happy Monday to you, and I wish you a wonderful week. Paul Millet, special shout-out to you this morning. I'm one of my ardent fans outside who listens in and followed through and so forth. Right, so I want to shout him out this morning.
All right, great.
Yeah,
you know, it's always good to acknowledge the folks who take the time out to listen to the show.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you feel okay that you know that you could get those feedback from individuals, make you know that you're making an impact some way or the other.
Well, as I said, GT, you know, I met a lady.
Yeah.
And she crossed my path and she said, "You are Mr. McIntyre." I said, "Yeah." She said, "You're the man that know everything." I said, "No, not really." She said, "Because you're on the program, I follow the program, and you touch about just about everything." I said, "Well, I hope that's not the way I come across, as though I know everything." I said, but yeah, if my program or the program means something to you, yeah, she said she learned a lot from the program.
All right. Well, that's good.
So that's the kind of a thing. So I guess more and more, this is becoming like a nice homegrown program to Grenadians who look forward to it, and there's a particular audience.
Yeah.
I think we are getting a lot of the people who are at home.
Yes.
A lot of senior people, and we are hoping that the information that they get, that they can pass it down to the rest of the household and the siblings and say, well, you know what? Even if this program comes on at 9 a.m., and you cannot see because you're at work or at school or somewhere, you can follow it up. You can come on and tune in and go back and find the program on YouTube, right?
So it's on YouTube. Yes, you could follow it. You could pick it up. You could go back via the Facebook page.
Yes.
And look at it also. And it's good to get it trickled down some way or the other for the younger folks who could, you know, information that we disseminate from time to time here.
Yes.
Those are the individuals that should grasp for it. You understand? The younger folks, you know. Mr. McIntyre, what happened for the last week?
Man, a lot.
Tell me. I'm in that all ears kind of feeling this morning. I want to hear what happened last week. What happened last week?
Well, we have the pleasant and sometimes the not so pleasant. Where should I start first? Well, let's start with pleasant, right?
The pleasant stuff. Good stuff first.
The rain. So the rain is here. And this morning, I had to sit in the vehicle for about 15 minutes before I get out to the program. So it feels like the rain season is on with us almost in full. It came a little bit, and some people planted for Corpus Christi, and others held to their chest because Corpus Christi doesn't mean that it's the best time sometime because of the moon state. Some people like to plant by moon.
Yes.
So I know there are some people who are waiting to plant maybe for this upcoming moon because we just passed new moon.
I have no knowledge about the moon.
You must look at the moon. You must look outside.
I'm knowledgeless when it comes to issues about the moon. And I hear people talking about it from time to time. Since I was young to the age I'm at now. You know, it's this moon and the moon means
so
that.
The moon state has its impact biblically for planting, for activities. And it does have its impact for atmospheric climatological informations and effect as well.
All right. I just never had the interest of following up what's tell me about anything else.
As an older person, to an extent, they would tell you about what happens usually around the change of the moon. There are some things that happen. Even with ladies as well, the moon state has something to do with the physical changes in their bodies and all that. So there's quite a bit that happens with the moon, and they can tell you
more trouble at that particular time.
Yeah, man. And they can tell you it's not about just fictions, but they can tell you they have proven it because it happens every time at a certain time when the moon is at a particular stage. They either may have little pain, more pain, or some things may happen.
Great.
So the moon is really good. So I urge you, Mr. GT, to please.
I will.
Just don't follow technology. I know you're very technologically savvy.
Yeah.
But you should go a bit to the moon too, all right?
I will.
So the rain is here.
Yes.
And I had a look at the Grand Etang Lake, and again, people forgive GT and myself, we would speak about Grand Etang because one of the favorite places, and you traverse the island.
I've been there for the last for last week. I've been there at least 5 times.
So what did you observe about the water level? I haven't
been to the lake area. You know where I would be. So I haven't been to the lake area.
So the pleasant months,
but
the rain has fallen. Yeah, and I tried to figure out whether or not the water level has risen at the lake. there's no indication that has happened so far.
So we haven't got the magnitude of rainfall yet that will cause an increase.
Right. But what is also interesting and noticeable is that the marsh or the shrubbery in the area, it is encroaching rapidly.
Yes.
And so there is about 50%, no exaggeration, of that shrubbery that has taken over the water in the Grand Tang area. That could be cause for concern.
But not to cut you, but you remember some a couple years ago, or even up to recent, we hear some conversation about getting rid of those shrubs in the Grand Tang. We haven't seen no movement of that.
No movement. There's a boat that is parked there for a few years now, and the intent was for that to maintain the cleaning. And there was one talk about the key got lost one time, they couldn't find it, and there are varying reasons why it's not been. Yeah, and the guy said, Master McIntyre, you really believe that the key got lost? If it actually got lost, they couldn't find the makers or somebody you can hotwire and get things started. So he said,
I will consider that a poor excuse.
Okay, great. So I hope that is not an excuse.
I hope.
But the concern about it, though, it may be an environmental issue, because Nawasa used that area and had to stop because the water level was getting too low to pump to get water for us. So that's a bit of concern. But my thing, it goes beyond just the water level and the grass and so on that is growing there. We need a scientific study, and we need an environmental study that can give a very professional report as to whether or not, if they take out the marsh that is growing there, what kind of an impact it may have on the water level or the water table, etc. And that could be some reason why. And I think we need Grenada's, with the old Grenada, a report and a study on that area as to why it is not cleaned and why it is encroaching, and within the next, at the rate it is going, 5 to 10 years, it will be all gone.
Yeah.
And that is layman's, but I have been following it, and at the rate it is going, that could dry up. I mean, it could take up all of that and become just a swamp, and whether or not that will have effect for drought and the conditions that we're likely to face with climate change in the future. So I will appeal to one of my favorite ministers, Shireen James, within the environment, maybe a challenge to her to look at that and give us some kind of a technical report as to why, and the Ministry of Forestry and the Environment, etc.
Because I was just going to ask you that, which ministry or so is responsible for lakes and rivers and stuff in Grenada?
We have forestry and we have national parks, and these that will have some responsibility to do with that. But I would expand it to the environmental areas that they should have some stake to do with it. And we think that what's happening there is a cause for concern. And the other thing that I looked at as well, it is a tourist attraction site. But what do tourists really go there to look at? The gate is now closed at 6 p.m. It's opened at 8 a.m. It closes at 6 p.m. And I'm asking, what is the rationale for closing that gate to go into there and see almost little or nothing except some water that isn't very attractive right now?
At the stage we're at in Grenada right now, I always say the Grand Tang area, even from the greenhouse area, even down to the lake, I think the attraction should be developed.
It should be enhanced.
It should be enhanced more than
quite a bit.
It's like same old for the last a couple of years. From little boy to now I'm going there, it's like the same thing I'm seeing.
So there has
except
to be,
for the gazebos I was put in there.
And that's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
And that's gone.
There has to be some reason why they're shutting it and they're allowing people to go in there. The point is, what do people really go in there for? I think they go for social event, for hangouts and so forth. And if we're saying that we want people to have places to hang out other than being involved in something else, that's an area that people should go. And if locals are not charged anything to go in there, and when people are charged to go in there, what are they paying to see? And I'm saying, if there's a security issue within the Grand Tang Park area, then maybe you can increase the security to run 24/7, and then charge something for those who are going in there, and if it's fishing, that they're preventing people from fishing and so on, put fines that if you charge 1 or 2 persons for fishing in there, the money that you charge them could pay security for at least a year.
I agree.
So then you create the environment that we can enjoy, and you create the security element that would maintain it. But we're saying right now, it's really not an attractive place. There's a lot that should be done to enhance it. And if you're creating and you are debarring Grenadians from visiting or going there after 6 p.m. in the evening, why? What is there to protect?
I will say, Mr. Mack, sometimes we think people who are in the particular position that are in charge of these particular areas, are they lacking the vision, the knowledge of what they really, their sole purposes?
I don't know. Maybe if they need some vision, they could ask me, because I have 2020.
Sometimes you look and you say, there's so much that could be done.
Of course,
in these areas. So much that could be done, and it's just left.
And no rocket
I understand
science.
You want to keep the natural habitat about it,
yes.
but there's so much that could be done that could enhance it.
No rocket science.
Make it even wanting to be there, even for a visitor, even for locals wanting to be there. Just the attraction that it offers makes you want to go there.
Of course,
and it could be financially viable also.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, financial viability. The fishes fishes were introduced into that area, I think, during the Hurricane Ivan period.
Yes.
Some persons brought them there for safekeeping, etc. And the tilapias and the koi and the goldfish and other things were introduced there. And what those fish, or the types of fish that they have done, they also took away from what we have that was homegrown, the crayfish.
Yeah.
So there was crayfish in the lake, and the locals used to fish there and catch proper crayfish. And so these fish, as they introduced them, have eaten away. Okay. And the crayfish, you can't see them
anymore.
So
you don't have that anymore.
No, you don't have them anymore. And what use are we making of the fish? There's a restriction on fishing. If it now then becomes an activity or something for people to view, to see the fish, what are we creating to make that attraction, and how can we make it financially viable or otherwise within that area? So there's a lot to do, and I'm sorry, Granite Tank is one of my favorite places. Please give it some attention.
I can feel the passion in terms of how you speak about it.
Because the environment, apart from not crossing it, I love to be cool as well, and up there is one of the cooler areas in Grenada. Right. You go to Granite Tank and you go to Kubla up there, man, you have to wear your coat. You feel really nice and cool. Walking through the rainforest, it's just, I love the environment too.
You talk about cool, but I think climate change is stepping in on the areas of it.
Up there is a bit warmer now.
It's not as cool as it used to be. It used to be. It's to me it's regular as regular.
But it's still one of cooler places.
Maybe in the latter part of the evening you may feel
early in the morning.
Cold, but early in the morning. But during the course of the daytime you're there, it's just as hot.
Okay.
Talking about heat, we see the US are complaining now, excessive heat, a lot of
climate change, the reality of it.
Stepping in for them. What are we to expect coming up in the next couple of months?
Yes. This is, and you want to spill right into the topic.
Not really our topic conversation,
but it's just that we're going to
the surface of it.
You're asking the right question, because today we are going to be speaking on what Grenada and the Caribbean is expected to face. Hurricane season 2024. We're going to speak about that as our main program focus this morning. Right. But finally, in terms of our roundup and our views that happened, the Ashley McIntyre Road Safety Foundation, we have been following very closely that accident that occurred just over a week ago.
Yes. In
the very same area where he died. And I was in touch with the relatives of the person who passed, and they have some serious concerns.
Yeah.
And they, I'm sure, will be voicing the concern later on in terms of the process of the investigation and the kind of approach to the whole situation.
Yeah.
How we embrace an opportunity and how we treat people. I spoke about the social fabric and how we embrace or incorporate people who are challenged for some reason. When something happened to them, is it downplayed, or is it a process of our society cannot care too much, or is it cultural as to how we treat some
people
situation?
Just get more attention than others.
It could be that apparent. We don't want it to seem so. And then we speak about the process of justice, and we also say that justice is not supposed to be done, but it has to also appear to be done or delivered. And so throughout this process, we also believe that justice delayed is justice denied. And how do we prioritize things as a nation when things happen? Accidents are occurring on our streets still. There was a serious accident that occurred somewhere along the Western Corridor, and it was believed at the point that the person may have died we understand that's not the case. But this did not take a lot of front stage. Not a lot of people spoke about it, how the accident occurred and what should happen. But things like this, these occurrences, our foundation will take them up.
Yeah.
The gentleman spoke to me, I think right along would be along sometime, and we definitely will be championing the cause for justice. We want to be and will be the voice to help these people investigate properly. There is no one who's been found. The status of the investigation, we try to find with the RGPF what should be, and the people will say what they're getting as a feedback. Yeah. And it's not very encouraging at this point.
All right.
In terms of how our environment and our conditions are wrong, we create it to capture information when things happen. We did mention our program last week whether or not the strip of road, the Morris Bishop Highway, whether or not the lighting is also sufficient, whether it could be a contributing factor to accidents in those areas at night, and whether or not our penal system is a deterrent sufficiently for people speeding in those areas at any time at all. And when you look at the lighting there and so on, the yellow lights and otherwise, we believe generally that across our country there are places where lights should be better so that motorists and pedestrians could move around easier. In addition to that, we believe, and I'm making an appeal here for cameras. And our foundation, we are asking people if you want to contribute cameras to put into particular places.
Yes.
We believe that entire strip of road and some places that are seeming to be prone to accident, it should be fully cameraed.
Because I was just going to say that, in the day and age of technology in Grenada, I mean, technology is at a level in Grenada.
Yeah.
People may not know, but I was saying, it wasn't there any one camera maybe on a business premises or so that saw anything? Nothing?
And this would be part of the questions that will be asked later on. And in the process of the investigation, we'll be asking how many persons and places along that street that have cameras that should be able to provide some assistance to the investigators as to who might have struck that good soul and drove away.
Right.
And I know of states and places where there's an accident when it occurs, or somebody on the loose, they would say to you, it's a blue vehicle, a green vehicle, or a white vehicle of a particular make. Anyone seen that? I remember in the United States, I was there when this thing happened, when a particular vehicle was mentioned about some alleged homicide of some students in a house.
Yeah.
And all vehicles fit that description, they were checked
and investigated,
and eventually one of those vehicles
did come up to be
one of those that was in the area, and happened to have been one of those that involved in the homicide. So we are saying that there should be cameras more on our streets, and we're saying corporate Grenada, you have a part to play in that. Business community and otherwise, camera your places effectively that will not only protect your business, but will help people move around.
Okay, and our the overall security of your premises also, and share the information.
Of course, and our state mechanism on our roads, and that strip of road in particular, we should have cameras every couple of feet that interlock with each other, and the lighting system should be at such that if something happened in that area, it should be easy picking. We heard about this, the mention of our traffic lights and cameras embedded within them, and we are yet to hear of persons who go cross, any of them being ticketed or otherwise
penalties for
violating those. That's aspects of the progress we would want to see, and we're going to push that very strong. If we're not getting on behalf of the family of that guy who died any form of response within the next couple of days, we are going to encourage particular actions nationally to happen push the process for justice.
All right. Ms. Mack, we do for a break. Let's take it, folks. We'll be right back. Coming back with much more in the conversation here on To The Point this morning. Stay with us. We will be right back.
As we bring you ball-by-ball commentaries of the T20 World Cup. The Cut and Drive Network, in association with this radio station, are pleased to be a part of the excitement. Join me, Andrew Mason, as I lead a team of top-class cricket commentators right through to the finals on June the 29th at the historic Kensington Oval. Cricket, lovely cricket, on this radio station. You got a date, so don't be late.
This moment is all that I've been dreaming of. Well, focus. In these moments, we not just watch in our match, we live in it. 44 million fans, 11 players, one flow. Bleeding we colors, celebrating we greatness. Wherever it's played, Flow is proud to be a part of it. This is We Game.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. This is To The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. And Mr. Mac, welcome back into our second segment of the show this morning. As we mentioned in our first segment, we want to spend a little bit of time focusing a lot on storms, hurricane season. That's approaching.
Yes.
And my question as it relates to what you said, you said I kind of interjected on it a little bit. Are we ready for the storms that are approaching? I've been looking at some of the weather pattern just last night, and there's this particular channel that just give you a little bit of preview of what's to come.
Yeah.
And it's talking about the seas hotter than that it should be around this time of the year.
Yeah.
And and some folks are saying the way the seas are hot now. Usually they see that around August, September, around that time, and they're seeing that level of heat right now, which is just making it even worse for when storms or so forth, comes around to absorb that. They get that extra energy.
Yes.
As you would say.
Absolutely.
Are we ready for what's approaching for 2024?
Ready. That's a big term. And you could take it in different contexts.
Are the authorities ready for what's approaching for 2024?
I'm not sure if I'm qualified to speak on the authority. That's what I tell you from what angle we're going to take it. But before I do though, I just want to, as sometimes you say I wear different caps, you didn't ask me about this.
Well, I didn't. I saw the shirt, but somehow it slipped on me. It slipped on me a wee bit.
So it depends on what I'm going to touch as the main thing I probably will represent. So today I would represent the Caribbean Disaster Risk Management Solutions.
Okay.
That's CDRMS. That's a company that one of the parents for, and this company is Grenadian grown, homegrown, and we focus on disaster risk reduction initiative. We do plans and policies and everything for disaster preparedness. So this aspect of the program is really sponsored by them. I'm speaking on their behalf in terms of that kind of contribution towards Grenada. We're doing that information for free in terms of ensuring that Grenadians are prepared. And because we are facing a hyperactive hurricane season as well, there are gratis contributions that we can make if people want us to look at the plans, how they can better tweak it to be ready for a very active hurricane season or otherwise, and any other disaster risk reduction initiative.
Yes.
We are capable of doing that.
Okay.
So I just want to say that this aspect of the program that we are really going to read is Caribbean Disaster Risk Management Solutions. We are bringing that to you as a gratis.
All right.
No charge to anyone. Yeah. Right. But as you speak about the readiness in terms of whether Grenada is ready, whether the authority is ready, and as whatnot, I would just want to generalize it and then we will allow our nation and yourself to figure out whether or not we are ready for what we're facing.
Right.
But readiness is really, it could be relative, it could be subjective. It depends on what angle you would take it from. But if you ask me, coming from Hurricane Ivan 2004, that is just 20 years ago, whether we better positioned to deal with hurricanes, and the answer would be a resounding yes.
Okay.
And in terms of where our mechanisms are to deal with a hyperactive season, if we wish to take a cue from what the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, has been saying, is that they are putting structures in place to ensure that as they are entrusted with that responsibility for natural hazards, that they are sharpening the tools and ensuring that people are aware and certain things happen before the hurricane season kicks in full. We've just had June 1st, is the official opening of the hurricane season. But since before even the official opening, we saw change within the environment that says tropical systems were beginning to form and so on. And it goes up to the 30th of November, and sometimes there are ones that go beyond that. So what we heard them say recently, they did speak about shelters.
Yes.
And the list of hurricane shelters are out.
Yes.
And we had Miss Tanya Hyacinth from Ministry of Education, who has sole responsibilities for shelters and shelter readiness. They did speak of the number of shelters and some of the do's and don'ts. So that in itself is a step in terms of the readiness for the hurricane season. Ministry of Housing, Gender, Social Development, Community Development, etc., they've been doing some training with their staff. As a matter of fact, through the USAID, Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance, we facilitated some of these processes for them to ensure that their staff are ready to do the damage assessment and the needs analysis of people who are affected. And they already are interested in, doing the social things, doing the housing and so forth. So I want to give kudos to the Minister, Ms. Gloria Thomas in particular, who's been strong in driving us, the staff within the ministries and our portfolios, to ensure that they are ready, if we do have some impact or otherwise, that they are capable. And interestingly, one of the didn't get to area was the psychosocial aspect of it.
Yes.
And because they look at the whole gender issue and their social development, we know that the whole aspect of how people will recover and deal with the situation is an aspect that they're focusing on. Because as the record shows globally, that the direct impact do have devastating consequences and loss of lives, but the post situation has accounted for more loss of life than the immediate impact itself. I followed the situation when I was in BVI Tortola. The number of people who died during the hurricane, and they had an extra category 5. We're going to speak about categories later on as well.
Yes.
And the number of persons who died after the hurricane was tremendously more than those who died. True. Because they were not used to that level of devastation. A lot of things changed, the social events, the education system, the whole environment. It was a total readjustment for them. And so some people cannot cope with the situation. If we follow the records as well from Hurricane Ivan, we lost about 39 people directly related to the hurricane. But there are persons who died after that, and I'm not too sure that even from that point, that our records and our statistics is geared to reflecting that kind of
what
impact.
Would be the cause of their death?
That when we do have serious events, how do we record them and follow them? We've had COVID as another disaster that struck a pandemic and so forth. And I don't know if our statistics is really closely monitoring the number of persons who may die as associated events and not necessarily COVID itself, but what the fallout. People lost their jobs, they lost loved ones, and quite a number of things, the traveling situation, the stresses that comes on with it. These things could have fatal consequences. And as to whether or not we do take stock of that. And what we do is not to just follow after the event, but how we can make ourselves better ready for the next one when it comes. That we can kick in our structures quickly so that you understand that people are going to be affected. Frontline workers and otherwise, they would need some kind of support. They would need the physical, the infrastructural support, and they would need the psychosocial support.
Yes.
So the post-traumatic situation that people experience, they would need some help, and the national structure should cater for preventing that extra and the additional and useless loss of life by ensuring that your mechanism and your structure for that social recovery, psychosocial and otherwise emotional well-being, that it kicks in much earlier. Right. So in terms of our readiness, it's quite a bit of ready. We have to be ready.
Yeah.
From a state point of view, every ministry has to ensure that its staff and everything, they do have some level of readiness and reminder. They should start looking at the plans and policy because, again, following up from Hurricane Ivan, our business continuity left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And business here does not only mean the commercial entities that sell rice and sugar and other things and lumber, but the business of the day, which is running of the country and ensuring ministries and everything could happen. That's also business. Yeah. And so these ministries need to have the plan in place so that education and health, tourism and all of these entities that are so critical to the economic well-being, how can we minimize the time of recovery by having things in place? So at this point, we have lost a couple months, maybe hours in terms of readiness, because it's not the 1st of June readiness because the hurricane season is here. Yeah. We need to showcase. Yeah. It's a matter now of crossing T's and dotting I's, ensuring and following through on your readiness to ensure that if one of these systems do strike, that we can deal with it and we can recover really quickly.
All right.
I remember when we went to BVI in 2017, the hospital was one of the most robust structure that they had, and they withstood this Category 5 hurricane. And so us as responders and even the national disaster system in that country, they functioned out of the hospital, one of the conference facilities, because it is saying that they did something right and a few things right, that it ensured that the well-being, the health situation was going to be taken care of. So doctors and nurses and entities critical, they were functioning out of the hospital. Right. And so it says that we need to look at all of our structures to ensure that if one of these things do happen, that our country is not unduly delayed or retarded because we did not do something before.
All right. You know, I would also ask a question. I mean, we listen to the conditions that have been forecast for us, you know, the predictions that are out there. Do you think that the individuals are hearing to these information that has been thrown out? Are people getting themselves really knowledgeable about the do's and don'ts in terms of when these predictions and forecasts are thrown out at us?
I don't know how to accurately report on that. I can give you my own feel, but there are groups and stages of people who take that situation more serious. Yeah. I know some of the business people, and mainly at the higher and senior level, they do take some of these serious because they understand what it could mean for the business. Yeah. I know of at least 2 entities I can mention. I know Glen in particular, they're one of those who really take the preparedness very serious. I work with Joseph Huggins as a company as well, and every year they look through the plans and so forth, and we do some work with them, and they have instruments of reviewing their plans and so on. I remember Flow, as one of the service providers, they were always on board and asking us to help them, you know, check their plans, and they would do some follow through. Yeah. So from that point, ministries, I know in some ministries they do some pre-work, but you find in most cases the public sector is one of those that sometimes, for some, I don't know, some unknown reason, maybe because they feel it's government and government should do it, and individuals and some people who supposed to have the authority, they don't really exert it to ensure that they look after our assets sufficiently, and they follow through rigorously because they do not see sometimes the business or the work of government as a business, and they sometimes do not see their profession that serious, and some people, too many of them just go to work work the hours and go home and do not see themselves as stakeholders.
All right.
And I think if we push people to see that they're part, and if everyone takes a responsibility in ensuring, and particularly PSs, who are the stronger people within ministries and the leaders of the process, to ensure that the staff entrusted within them, that they look at the plans, they hold their meetings, they hold their briefings, and ensure that the supervisors under them, they follow through. We can have things happen more seamless, and we can have less problems when something do happen, because it's not if, but it will happen. We don't know where we stand this year in terms of the impact that we're expecting where hurricanes and tropical cyclones are concerned. But we are in this hyperactive, and as we go, we were going to speak somewhat technical this morning in terms of where they come from, how they form, and the kind of impact.
Because it would lead to my next question. Because we hear from storms and we hear hurricane. How come? When does this information is given out? Like we're expecting a storm,
right? And
then we know from a storm, and it continues to develop. We know what can happen. Gets to a hurricane.
Yes.
And whatever the category may be.
Right.
You understand?
Right. Good.
What we go from there? When does the concern level or the alert level for individual raises?
Right.
From that storm to a
hurricane. So, and I don't want to miss our other part. Hold to your question. I want to just expand a little bit on the question you asked in terms of readiness and the information, how people treat it. I think our younger population, they don't pay a lot of attention to preparedness information. While they are very electronically and gadget savvy, but their focus is probably not in that direction. And so you'll find there's a particular age group and a particular type of people who pay really keen attention to the readiness. And I remember recently, somebody who was a youth at the point when Hurricane Ivan struck, that thing was always wanting to experience a hurricane.
I want to get the experience.
And when they get that, they didn't want to see it anymore. And 20 years on, a lot of the youth that we have now within they don't understand and have not experienced, and we do a good job in keeping some information secret to these youth and trying to influence them a bit more. So I think we need a very strong youth in disaster preparedness to kind of drive the youth and have that information component at the fingertips. A lot of our entertainment and our institutions, they must be driven a bit more in terms of disaster preparedness and emergency readiness, so that our youth could be more active in that kind of, and make it attractive to them and involve it in the things that they like. I know when parents have their children and there are certain things that they know is healthy for the children and they don't want to use it, they would find a way of mixing it within something and give it to them because they understand it is good.
So you think that approach should probably be taken?
That's correct.
Disseminating information to
the youth.
Mix it with
that's
something
correct.
that would
the kind of thing that
interest.
they want. You jump on your phone, and as the other sites will pop up, there's something that should pop up
that will relate to disaster management and preparedness and so forth. That should come in.
Yes.
So Mac, let's take a break,
and then we go back.
When we come back, we talk a bit more in terms of the question that I asked.
Maybe we had to
lots of calls already coming and so forth.
Not today, maybe next
week. Next week we probably grab a couple more minutes. I'll probably leave out the segment where we just chat on a shorter level.
We're gonna do.
We'll probably do that. Let's take that break, folks. We're coming right back. Stay with us. It's To The Point here, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We'll be right back with much more for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for Grenada to laugh again. Heritage Theatre presents Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024, Saturday, June 22nd and Sunday, 23rd June at the Trade Center in Grandance, and on Sunday, 30th June at the Deluxe Cinema in Grenville. Showtime, 7 p.m. every time, featuring some of Grenada's best ambassadors of comedy. Robert White.
I will line up behind the yellow for 9 elections straight. I changed all any time to lose the last election. Why? Because I'm always on the losing side.
Dillion Walters.
Every McQueen I couldn't take. And don't tell me all you didn't know.
Kareem Alexis, and other outstanding comedic performances, all coming to knock you off your seats with laughter. Get your tickets now. Bring out the entire family. Tickets are $60. It's time for Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024.
The place go flood with laughter.
I want you to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence.
Records at the traffic department shows that a total of 1,447 accidents were reported for the year 2012, which includes 3 road fatalities. 2,946 accidents were reported for the year 2022, which includes 8 road fatalities. This is a significant increase of 104%. This is alarming.
I'll tell you, master, I'm a radar. Girl, I'm a radar. I don't care now. Jump pull up in the area. Pull up in a ranger. They wanna who's a stranger. I don't care now. I don't care about the neighbor.
When a family tragically loses a loved one, does it matter whether by means of a gun or a motor vehicle? To avoid accidents, drivers and pedestrians alike must exercise extreme caution when using the road.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. To the point here, Classic Radio and GBN TV. Welcome back, Mr. Mac. Mr. Mac, just before you answer the question I asked, I was looking at a comment from someone via the WhatsApp, and it kind of goes back to the conversation we having when we started as related to the moon and stuff like that. Listen to what this individual is saying. And they're saying, I don't believe so much in following the moon almanac to grow the crops, but like my grandpapa always say, grow when sun is shining and harvest when it looks tasty. Right? Okay. And they're thanking the rain coming down now, so needed. And they also follow on by saying this: you have hit a number of issues in Grenada and needs the top-down addressing. Following the person down the road yesterday after eating something, he just threw the container on the ground. We need to make it shameful for littering in terms of when somebody litter. Yeah. And they also say that they would let me get that part. They're saying that it would be would have more to say about our beautiful nation, something like that. The recycling program is not credible, and lack of garbage bins is contributing to the harm to the environment. You can find all you want, and the shame is more powerful. So you see, in essence, he's trying to say that there should be something out there for when individuals litter. Yeah. Bring a process shame to you or so for littering.
And you know the litter law is very, very obvious. It's very there. It's very precise. Yeah. It's just not enforced. The amount of things with everything else
that's with everything else.
Just dropping something off.
Yeah. Let's entertain one caller before we get into it. This individual has been calling for a while. I'm not sure what they want to contribute, but let's just listen to them and then we take some time to talk about, of course, the question that I asked. Yes. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning to you. I was listening to your program a little while now that you mentioned like Granite Lakes, But we have the number 2 lake, which is River Twine. And River Twine is very, very close because a month ago, I went up there and I was having a look of the lake. And it's said for the bushes and the grass and them to go out. That is coming and then River Twine Lake, that is getting very, very small and smaller and smaller. So these lakes and them, it needs cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. You know what I mean? So we cannot look up on the Gunneton Lake alone. And all lakes in Grenada here, you have to be cleaned and keep it proper. And also, I want to say thanks for the rain and now is the planting season and all those who have artificial lands and gardens, I beg them please stick something if they could. Have a good morning.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for your simple, well put together contribution.
All lakes need to clean, not just Granatang. No, we focus on Granatang primarily because we visit more frequently. You understand?
Yeah. And this gentleman touched on something that we cannot. He touched on food security.
Yeah.
He said planting. Everybody said just put something in the ground.
Yeah.
That is food security.
Let's take another one and then we take another caller and then after we talk about of course our main question that I asked. Caller, you're welcome. Good morning.
Yes, I agree with you that the contribution. Good morning. First of all, good morning, Mr. McIntyre, and also UGT and the listening audience and Bruce also. But I agree with the last caller, with the first caller. Yes, certainly. But you touched on something earlier on about how to mix what we need to learn. We need creative people. The lack of creativity among our people, especially people who are within, who are hired to do certain work. There's so many ways you can do things. People still go to church. I mean, there's so many things that we ask, where's the creativity and the innovation? So, the other thing about it is that we could talk about science, we could talk about putting bins and all kinds of things. If you don't get people to buy into behaving more civil and more responsible, we would just be like happening after all these years. People only put on a lot of people, not everybody, the seatbelt only when they see a police. When they think a police is approaching, because we have a slave mentality. We need to change that and become responsible individuals who take account for all the things we do and do not do. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Appreciate your contribution this morning. Mr. Mack, I think we could get into our question before we get bombarded by the calls and then we lose track of time. Yeah. So we go back to, as I was mentioning before we start taking the calls and before the break also, when I said the process that we go through from storm to hurricane, the importance of it, that in terms of individuals should know when a storm is predicted and when a hurricane arrives.
Yeah. So what I wanted to have done this morning was to do a chronology of the systems from when it becomes from an area of disturbed weather right into a category 5 hurricane. And so that in itself is a bit technical, but I like to, when I speak, that people have an understanding as to where things come from, what the impact it can have. So a hurricane does not just start as a hurricane. It starts from what we call an area of disturbed weather, where the atmospheric conditions come together and then becomes an area of disturb with climate, with water and some means of pressure and so forth. And then it goes into a tropical wave.
Yes.
It has no defined area of circulation, and then it goes into a depression, and then it starts developing some form of structure, and it goes into a tropical storm. And tropical storms, waves, and depressions, they are defined by the wind and the amount of pressure that it has associated with it, and the amount of moisture that is also accompanying it, and so forth. So when a storm is developed and it is given a certain amount of strength, the strength it is given is dependent on the amount of wind speed it is expected to have with it, the strength of the wind. And when we speak about the pressure, we always hear the meteorologists speak about the barometric pressure is 10.4 millibars or X, Y, and Z. And the lower these the reading is, the stronger the system. So it always the average about 10 point something and so forth and rising. It means therefore that the chances of the formation and the strength of these happen to be less when the temperature seems to be is rising. As the temperature drops lower, it means that there's more strength, that these could become stronger and devastating.
Okay.
And the wind speed itself is what would give the storms the numbering as they come through. As the storms increase with the number of wind speed, as it gets up to 74 miles per hour, it becomes a Category 1 hurricane.
Yes.
And it goes all up to a Category 5, which is 155 miles per hour wind strength. And that is significant. With a 155 miles per hour wind strength, that can have devastating consequences.
Yep. Yes.
Now, hurricanes and storms, the general term for them are tropical cyclones. So a storm is a tropical cyclone, a hurricane is also a tropical cyclone. And so that's the general name that's given to them. So we speak about tropical cyclones, and they spin clockwise from a left to right direction and so on. They turn. And they call cyclones because they have this turning effect.
Yes.
And as they turn and they carry the moisture and the wind speed with them, they carry with them different types of hazards. So the wind is a hazard, the water is a hazard, tornadoes and twisters and thunderstorms as well. That's associated in the middle of the storm. So you have the center of the storm and the eye of the hurricane. So around there, what is called the eye walls and so on, where you have more pressure, is something that's the area that would give you more destruction. So the meteorologists would tell you, and they would speak about those areas as they come through, so that the technical people can follow them, and as they speak and advise government and countries, you would get an idea as to what kind of a devastation it is likely to have. So your preparedness measures could be guided based on the information that is given. Obviously, we would wish to spend more time speaking about the categories and what effects they can really have, and what the preparedness measures people will need to follow through. Mm-hmm. So whenever there is the hurricane season kicks in, the technical people from NOAA, etc., what you call the Hurricane Center, they would come together and they would form, based on modelings that they would get from over the years, different pieces that they would put together, that would give them an indication as to the amount of system that you expect during a given period.
Okay.
And the average per year is just around 13 systems, thereabout. And this year we have about twice the amount of that coming through.
Yeah.
So that's why they've not just named it an overactive season, but they call it a hyperactive. And I've never heard that in my life in terms of that level. Hyperactive. So over 24 systems are expected to come through. About 50% of that, just thereabout, is expected to become storms or hurricanes, and about 50% of that 50% is expected to become major hurricanes that will give you in excess of 110 miles per hour and above. That is significant in terms of the hazard and the risk that our nation faces. But hurricanes and storms are what you call you have the fast onset or the slow onset, and you have the rapid onset. Hurricanes are slow onset hazards in that it gives you a warning period. The instruments are there to monitor and to follow them, so they are slow onsets. So when you have a tropical storm or hurricane impacting, you should not have significant death relating to hurricanes, because they give you sufficient time to prepare. Right. Because we have sufficient systems globally to follow them. As for the Caribbean, they just spring off the African coast of Cape Verde, or Cape Verde as some people refer to it. They spring there and they come from east to west across the Caribbean. So that's why when they come across Barbados and these other countries that are east of us, you'd hear these situations posing a threat to them more than it is. And when they come across in our territory, you look at how the wind and everything come across Grenada. So it comes across from east to west, and this is why sometimes the southern to southeastern part of the island, the sea becomes more turbulent, because on that side you have the Atlantic and so on. So in particular in Grenada, you'd have the eastern coastlines, you'd see swells and other things, and the threat most for coastal erosion on that aspect of the island, they would be created or generated more than the other, except you have a general or a massive system that creates over ocean condition that would generate swells that all of your coastlines could be threatened at some time.
Okay.
At one time. So it comes with it, and it brings coastal erosion threats, landslides, and the flooding, and the strength of the wind can also relate to downpour lines, utilities, buildings, and so on could get destroyed as a result. But here what? Our systems has given us, and our ability to be technologically savvy has given us the ability to warn off people. So there's what you call the early warning systems.
Yes.
So there is first the alert when there's something that is generated way outside there. That's the alert period. And so there is what you call a grid reference, geographical reference, within which Grenada is guided. So once something seems to be forming up within there, our meteorologists will get on board.
All right.
And they will start the conversation, they will speak to Trinidad, and they will speak to the local system and see, well, this thing is creating, it has a potential to pose some threat to us, or otherwise start working towards that.
Could I, if I just ask you that as before we go to, because there's a couple of folks online, when the alert or the warnings takes into effect, when does that information get disseminated? Okay, let's say maybe it's 200 miles off Grenada. When does the information get disseminated to know that we're moving from a warning to
a watch to a warning?
Yeah.
So the alert period comes at any time something is identified within that area that is already predetermined by our meteorologists.
Okay.
And 72 hours before it is expected to pass your area, the watch is declared.
Okay.
So outside of the watch is an alert period that you're looking at. You have some concern, but within the 72 hours, a watch is declared. Yeah. The warning is called 36 hours before the system is expected to make landfall.
Is it? Do you think that time is adequate? Especially on when it gets to that issue, the part of a warning?
For hurricanes, it could be, because it used to be within the last 10 years or so, they moved it from 24 hours into the 36 because they figured that there was insufficient time for people to get prepared.
To prepare.
So it used to be 24 hours.
I was looking at that way, just 24 hours, and maybe we get in, we know it's probably gone up to a category 2 or 3, and we only have 24 hours to get ourselves prepared. Is that adequate time?
So and the preparedness information said within the 24 hours, you rush to preparedness. Yeah. So they've since shifted from that 24 hours to rush preparedness, and they moved into 36. Okay. So 36 to sometimes 48 hours, sometimes they would give you the warning period. Okay. Now, they do not want to send a warning too early. The reason being, there's so much margins for change within that period of time.
Yes.
If your mechanism kicks in too early, there are a lot of consequences towards that. One of it is the lack of confidence in your system. You spring this too early and something did not happen. And you say, people start losing and say, well, we can't trust these people.
I spend all my money and I know that I don't.
That's correct.
All right.
And when the country have to shut down the ports, they have to shut down the airports and everything else within the warning period, if you spring it too early, there's a lot of other economic consequences.
So, we only have approximately about 3 minutes or so on the program left. We do have a caller. Let's entertain this caller, see what's the contribution he has to make. Caller, welcome. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think there are a couple of issues. Number one, I agree. You don't want to do the warning too early because you don't want to give too much of a leap. You have to be careful with the timing because people can get desensitized. I think also that the whole concept of warning and that's when you get prepared can be misleading because we have to be prepared even without a warning. Because we're in the hurricane season, we can't wait until we get a warning to up the preparation. The one concern I have is that notwithstanding the different categories of the hurricane, I think even when you have a low category hurricane, you can have a lot of damage, which can be catastrophic to the community. And I think part of preparation, I had an example this weekend coming from the country, coming down to St. George's, and there was a vehicle in the road. It broke down, and there was a whole bottleneck, and it was very challenging, at least, to pass by that vehicle, because you almost could end up going down a precipice. And my concern is, when you're dealing with emergency vehicles, whether it's fire or ambulances and so on, do we have something in place when such a thing happens? Because you get blockage of the road on a main artery. That will be, say, like in Brizan, before you get the Bushaju area. Vehicles coming up north will not be able to pass. What will happen if there's somebody need to be taken urgently to the hospital? Without a high category hurricane, you can have significant landslide, which can lead to obstruction. So, do we have something in place for that?
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
So the caller raised two really good concern in terms of our ability to evacuate and to modify in case of emergency. It raises two main things: our marine asset and our air ability to move people.
Yeah.
So it says that we should even have maybe a helicopter service, and maybe it's an opportunity for private persons to invest. And we should have the ability for our Coast Guard to be decentralized, have smaller vessels in other places that if there's a situation where there is an emergency, you can pull up somewhere and get people into medical attention.
Let's take our final caller before we get some closing comments. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning. God, we credit finishing. I'm listening to the program. And Mr. McIntyre come up with a point about the moon. The moon is very good to plant, to use for planting, especially the dark moon. When the moon going back, you see your crop don't spoil. You don't take the corn doesn't take weevil, taking no worm. But in the full moon, you keep away from the full moon because it doesn't get good results from it.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And sorry for the lengthy hold caller, but it happens sometimes.
But their views are all important.
They're all important. Mr. Mack, interesting. Something on the conversation on the stage this morning as relates to storms and hurricanes, a program that have to be ongoing.
Sorry.
Because, there's a lot more that could be said to create the awareness. Because at this time now, folks have to just get their mind in tune to that we are into the season. And being the conditions that we've seen out there for the last couple of months, it is important to raise your alert and your alertness.
So we're going to minimize our contributions towards other things, and maybe
probably for the next couple of weeks we're going to focus more on the readiness as it. And if there's something really, really specific that we have to deal with, obviously. Yeah. Sure.
I agree with you.
Anything in closing before we take a wrap?
Right. I would urge us again as citizens to be more compassionate and look out for everyone in every circumstance. We believe for road safety, every person and every life is important, and as I mentioned, I would hold everyone have a part to play as it relates to disaster preparedness, disaster readiness. It doesn't take all of an event, and it doesn't take a lot of event of a national magnitude, but it can happen in small ways. And preparedness for any situation happens long before the time is due for it to happen.
All right.
It's a continuous process, and let's walk along that vein.
All right. Mr. Mack, thank you once again for being on the program this morning. I appreciate it as always. We'll do this next week once the Almighty permits, health, strength, and everything else in between. Folks, have yourself a great day. All who contributed, all those who sat at home and listened, and of course pick up on what we're talking about this morning. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. That's where I say goodbye.